Welcome to the Phillip Stark Show podcast. I'm launching this podcast with a series I'm calling the DIY Dirt, which is, just like it sounds, going to give you the dirt on how to succeed as a DIY artist. Today, our guest is Vanessa Silberman. Silberman is an independent singer-songwriter who has done over 20 tours between 2015 and 2020. She has played over 800 shows across the United States, UK, and Europe. She's also a record producer, engineer, and independent A&R representative, and runs an artist development label called A Diamond Heart Production. Hello, Vanessa.
Hey, thanks for having me, Phil.
It's a pleasure. Is there anything that you don't do? I mean, it's just like a list goes on and on.
Let's see. You know what? I tried to play some sports in high school. I definitely didn't make the cut for basketball or softball.
So how'd you get the guitar?
Actually, when I was before I was a teenager, maybe like 11 or 12, I was actually I was super into music, but I was also like really interested in impressing this friend who lived down the street from me, and his
That's
family.
how it all starts.
Yeah, his family. They had like a family band, and I thought he was like so cool, and like he was like, "Yeah, you could get a guitar, and like I'll teach you," and like so that's how I kind of like got kickstarted from that, and simultaneously hearing different bands. I like grew up in Hawaii, so
Okay.
I didn't have a lot of access to like radio, MTV, that kind of stuff. Really in the beginning, I didn't really have a lot of exposure. So when I heard stuff, I was like so impressed. Like I remember hearing Nirvana. Never had any idea what they looked like, but I was just like, what the is this?
Was that Smells Like Teen Spirit, or was that what was the song?
It was definitely Nevermind. I
Oh.
mean, I think it was just that whole record. I remember my friend's dad was playing it in his truck, and I was like, "Oh my God, wow,
Yeah.
this is awesome."
I had the same experience with that record. So Hawaii to, like, how did your musical career develop? You're Hawaii, then you went to Los Angeles, now you're in New York. Can you just tell us a little?
Yeah, so yeah, I grew up between Hawaii and the Bay Area, and then for a short period of time, I went to school in Arizona. This was just at the end of high school. And then after I moved to LA basically to start my band at the time, which was called Diamonds Under Fire, and get in the music business. And before I moved to LA, I had read kind of like every music business book I could get my hands on, like going to, the library or Barnes and Nobles at the time.
Why is that? You were taking the business angle from the beginning.
Yeah, I just felt like, okay, while I build up my band and figure that stuff out, I'm going to need to have a job and make money. So I'll, get paid in the music business in the meantime. So basically, that was kind of my beginning theory. And also, as things developed, I went to music school very briefly. I got a lot of internships. And I just, there was situations where, like, let's say I couldn't afford certain things. So I had to like teach myself the skills to make it happen. And I've always kind of looked at things where, okay, I'm not gonna, wait around. I gotta make this happen for myself and figure it out.
Gotcha. So you're in Los Angeles, you're learning things on your own, and you were maybe you said you went to a school or something like that as well?
Yeah, I went to a music school very briefly. I went to this place called Musicians Institute. I first started out in their guitar program. I was maybe in it for like 3-4 months. And I'd moved to LA thinking, okay, I'm going to meet so many musicians and be able to start a band. And that was just kind of not the case. I was in a guitar class every day with like 200 other guys. And like, it was really funny. I ended up feeling like, okay, this is not really what I don't want to get a degree in guitar. At first I was like, I'm going to go to LA, learn how to shred and like, start a band. But then
I didn't know you could get a degree in guitar,
you know what? Yeah, you can. And
really?
I figured out real quick that wasn't going to help me. And so I saw they had like an artist development program actually, where they teach you every little bit of thing about the music business and recording. So I did that for 6 months, and then I did their first ever music business course. And then when I saw the opportunity of that we could get credits by interning, I was like, great, I'm going to intern everywhere I can and try and get a job. And
Wow.
so,
So
so I did.
where did you intern?
I interned at Epitaph Records,
Mhm.
which has Bad Religion, NoFX, Pennywise, The Offspring, and like a lot of other bands. And they have the offshoot Anti Records and Burning Heart. You know, Anti put out Elliott Smith and like Tom Waits. So I interned there. I interned at Steve Vai's record label. And I also interned at Warner Chappell Publishing in their A&R department. Um, and so while I was doing this 6-month program, I ended up getting a job towards the end at Epitaph Records doing what they called at the time viral marketing, which is basically I went into chat rooms and talked to kids about records.
Wow. So interning is like the best way to go, really. I mean, as far as just intern, if let's say a kid starting out right now and wants to make it in the music industry, just intern everywhere you can and for free if you have to.
I mean, I did a lot of work for free, and I just felt like I needed to just learn as much as possible. I saw a lot of scenarios at music school where these kids moved to LA thinking that they were going to get record deals and stuff like that, and then quickly realized, oh, that's not happening, and moved home. So I was like, okay, I need to like figure all this out and get a job and learn as many skills as possible. So for any people looking to get in the music business, to me, at the beginning, it's all about learning and learning skills, which I feel like is super supportive of the way we are in technology now, branding. You know, being multifaceted, having a ton of different streams of income, being able to do a lot of different skills. So for anyone looking to get in the music business, I think learning and getting internships at the beginning or helping people so you can learn is really important.
It seems like there's two kinds of different animals out there when it comes to any kind of art. You know, there's the people who move to LA, it doesn't work out, and they just push through and push through and push through and make it happen, and they never go home no matter what. They just keep doing it. And other folks who try it, doesn't work out, and they move back home. So obviously, you're in the first group of people. So like, what makes you stand out? Why, you know, just to if someone's listening to this, so they can maybe figure out which type of animal they are. What's the difference between the person who starts and maybe they never really wanted to be a musician or they go back home? I mean, why were you able to continue and persevere, do you think, when others go back home?
I think I just, from a really young age, just believed so deeply that like my purpose on earth is just more than maybe more than business, but being an artist and sending some kind of message to help people through music. Music is like the one thing
Mhm.
that so many people on a universal level can relate to. It helps us through good times, bad times. We can be,
Quarantines.
yeah, we can come from completely different ages and languages, but still relate to music. And so I feel like that connection to music for me is very deep inside. And I feel like I only have one purpose on this earth, and that's has always been about music. And um, I feel like I never wanted to give up ever on myself. I've definitely had moments of highs and lows, but
Never doubted your decision?
I think there's been times where I had like a real deep thought on making a move to something or jumping in on something, and I had a lot of people who weren't, let's say, on board and with me, and that was tough. But you know what? It's learning to listen to yourself, because once you jump, then everybody else will jump. I mean, that was a huge thing for touring. But my thought would be to like for the other people who are getting into this, because nowadays the oversaturation or the different outlets that there are through social media or the DIY touring route, the independent route, the major label route, I think it's a lot more a lot more work to stand out, and it takes more time. So it does weed out the people who don't want to put a lot of work in, because if you're just not willing to put in the work, because it's a lot of work and a lot of sacrifices, I feel like those people, I mean, it's just too, it's kind of just too hard, you know?
Yeah. You really have to know yourself if you're going to do this. Know yourself and be honest with yourself if it's really going to be your passion, because when you're having those low points, the passion is the only thing that's getting you through them.
Absolutely. Man, that is the only thing that'll get you through. I feel like that's gonna push you through. Um, but it's like it's really hard to hang when like, uh, you don't have a lot of money, or you feel like you're your biggest fan. But that's the thing, is like you have to believe so much.
The holidays
And
come around and you're the only one without gifts for anybody. Like, everyone's making comments. Hey, you making any money yet? That sort of thing.
well, it's the thing is too, everybody has their own route,
Hmm.
or path in this lifetime, or even with music, no route is like the same. So
Hmm.
there's not one right or wrong way to do things, but I feel like it's always nice to hear the stories, the people who are successful. Everybody has a story. And I always felt so compelled by all those stories that I heard. Just, even people, how they got, different jobs at labels. And because it's a journey, and you definitely have to be along the ride for the journey.
So you're known for being super DIY, and you've just talked about what it means a bit. But how would you, in a greater scale, like define DIY? Because I mean, you're on your own label, you're producing your own music. What does DIY mean to you?
I mean, I feel like it's just giving yourself the opportunities. I feel like it's creating them. I feel like, for so many scenarios, like I'll give you a couple examples. I couldn't, like I told this you in the beginning, like I couldn't like afford some things. Like I couldn't afford to pay for a website. So, I either have friends who do stuff, to help me out for free, or I needed to figure it out on my own and start doing it. So then in turn I would learn a skill, and then I would be able to, get hired for that stuff. So the DIY I think is just really about initiating. I feel like it's not sitting there and waiting for something to come and happen to you. It's creating the life that you want and going after it and getting it and jumping in and just, okay, here we go. Let's start. Let's get this rolling, you know. And it's hard. I think for a lot of people, it's like you really have to be able to see beyond what's right in front of you, to create that kind of stuff. And to wanna create it, uh, for a big picture, or, with other people, or enjoy the process, because a lot of people are looking for a destination, or, aren't happy where they're at, and some of it stems from being content and really being happy and enjoying the process and being right where you are, but working towards something or creating what you want.
I think a lot of people have trouble creating opportunities for themselves because, the school system, everything teaches you that you're valuable if someone chooses you for something. If someone gives you a grade or someone chooses you for a job. But, the whole DIY ethic is you don't wait for someone to choose you, you choose yourself. But then you're responsible for everything. You have no one else to blame.
Yeah, totally. In some ways, I feel like that's a lot better. Then when someone else and people come in to try and help, it's like hard to give up the control. Um, just because, and but I also think that's where you need to be. Most successful artists have a vision. Uh, like a lot of the artists out there who big artists, they've always had a vision for everything from the music videos to their brand, and if they have a clothing company, or the way they want their record to sound, the look. So I feel like, even when you're in a scenario where you're selling a lot of records, and you have your team, you are going to be, going to your label, going to the marketing people, going to your manager. Hey, I've got this idea. can we contact these people? I'm thinking for this timeline, I want to do this. And then, you can bounce it off different people. But at the beginning, it's always just, you got to start the idea.
It's all about the vision. So you had your vision very clear from the very beginning?
I think
Do you know
really
where you're going
did.
right now? Like right now, do you know exactly where you've been, where you are now, and what your vision is for the future?
Well, I think I had a tough time when I was in, let's see, I would say in the early 2000s when I was really young. A young artist, I had this ornate and just deep vision for doing A&R and being an artist, but I had a lot of conflicting opinions because at that time music business was kind of a little bit different, but I had a lot of industry people or people, who had a lot more experience than me telling me, you got to be focused. You're all over the place. You got to pick one thing and I was just like, man, that doesn't make sense. Why would I not teach myself these other skills? Why would I not also like go and try and find like rad bands and tell people about them? I remember I had some people saying like, get more focused. You're trying to like get signed and you're pitching other bands. And I'm just like, I don't know. That's just me. And so I think uh you have to really listen to yourself and learning how to do that takes time. Um, learning how to listen to your instincts and also remember that it's not just one route. And now more than ever we're proving, like, I mean, we're redefining these things, I mean, as we speak, as this quarantine is happening. I mean, the music business is changing right now. And so
You can
um
launch a music podcast if you want to, just one day to the next. Boom.
absolutely. And the thing is, You know, I mean, usually I've always had like kind of a vision a step ahead in terms of like in December and January, I was planning my whole year as far as like doing like a digital release. So I already had a vision of what I'm doing right now. Um, and my thought was instead of prolifically touring, I'm going to prolifically, you know, put out quality music once a month and focus a little more on the digital stuff. So I set myself up, but I always wanted a record label. And I wanted to I created it when I was working full time as an assistant engineer in 2014. I had other people saying you should just focus on recording. What do you want to do? Like you're all over the place. No, you know what? The most successful people do a lot of things and they create opportunities for themselves. They have multiple streams of income. Any executive, label person, producer, artist who I have looked up to have been involved in a lot of things, maybe at different times in their life, but that's just me. That's
Well,
my
there's not
thing.
much of a roadmap to being a successful artist, is there? Everybody has a different story. It's not like I want to be a, rocket scientist. The steps are pretty clear to do that. To be an
Totally.
artist.
It's a lot harder too for I think the old school mentality to get behind it because they don't understand it. Let's say like our parents and grandparents generation. It's completely though I feel like a lot of people are warming up to it because with the internet and like computers, I mean everybody's working remote. This is totally the new age, but I think 10 years ago it was really hard for a different generation to really understand, oh, you're not gonna like go to college or you need a backup plan. No, there is, other ways.
Talking about those misunderstandings, like what sacrifices have you had to make and what kind of judgmentalism have you heard from like your parents, your grandparents, friends, people who are following those paths that have like, I'm going to be a lawyer, 1, 2, 3, 5 steps lawyer, and how they sort of view you and how you take it?
I mean, I feel lucky that I have a family, who's been pretty cool about stuff, but I've been called homeless. I've been like, hey, like maybe time to get a job after I've had like, a lot of like success in certain ways. But yeah, I mean, I gave up having a home so I could tour. I gave up a amazing job in a studio where I had like basically a built in, um,
How'd you make that
and
call? I'm at a studio. I'm making good money. It's very cool. I got a great house. Uh, no, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I worked at a recording studio called 606, which was the Foo Fighters studio.
Wow.
Um, I was the only in-house assistant engineer. So I was working with every band that I grew up listening to. As much as like those
Total
bands, like
dream job right there, right?
a dream job, totally. As much as and I got so many opportunities. Like I worked in all kinds of different jobs before that. And I think though, as much as I looked up to all those people, I just felt like I owed it to myself and just to say, you know, I can do it as an artist. And because I had other people tell me, Vanessa, maybe you should just consider like staying behind the scenes. And I'm like, no, like you're wrong. And so I was like, you know what? F- it. I'm gonna do my label. I'm gonna play music. And I got a storage unit and I just said, this is what I'm gonna do. I mean, for all I knew, I was gonna be on the road for as long as I could. Um,
Well, how that play
right now
out? How that play out logistically though? You're going to go on the road. Okay, so you're quitting the job, and now you say,
so
okay, what do I do now? I have to get shows, and how do I do that?
Yeah, so I had a band before that I also used as a moniker at times. And I had done quite a bit of touring before. I'd done a big support tour, a couple big support tours, and then a lot of independent tours. So I knew quite a bit about booking and had my own experience doing my own press and stuff like that. So I think when I first started, I came on to a project. I was gonna be a guitarist for another project. In the meantime, I was also doing my label and helping another friend actually develop a radio, network and show, and, during that time, I had also planned doing a project in South Africa with a studio and label. So, meanwhile doing
You're
all
a very
this.
busy person, I have to say.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in life that I just wanna do, and I like staying busy, and it's music's what motivates me. So, during this happening, all those things that I mentioned happening, it was probably a year, and during that time, I planned ahead all my releases and started planning my tours, and, with the tour, like the very first solo tour I did in 2015, I basically went in and it was like kind of a test tour to see how things
Was that the
go.
United States or was it international? Or
That was just in the States, the
Mhm.
first one. Basically to see kinda how much money I could make, what I was spending. I was just kind of like figuring out, and then from there, it just kind of went off. As I was touring, I was booking and I was promoting and doing other projects in between. And I was just, I just kept going. And I just kept going and going.
Yeah.
Before I knew it, in like 2017, I was just going from tour to tour to tour to tour, with then as I was touring, first when I started, it was just by myself. As I was touring, I started meeting all these amazing people and musicians, and all these people would offer, "Hey, next time you're in town, if you want, I'll play with you. I'll learn your songs." And so I started like meeting a crazy network of all these musicians. And then I started touring with different friends and,
Is
recording
that the
bands.
best route to go? Because I mean, to play with other bands, if you're playing, you're like a solo artist to get more people to come to the shows.
I mean, I would just meet other musicians who would ask if they could back me.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and, sometimes I started getting in this frame of mind where I just meet a musician and, like, a minute before going on, I'd be like, "Hey, you wanna play a song with me?" at the end, and we'd just play a song, and it was just I just I just had I was just having so much fun and, like, so much work, so many hours of, like, driving, not sleeping,
Well,
at times.
talk to us more about that. Like, take us through the process of booking a tour on your own and doing it. And I'm sure you played a lot of maybe empty rooms, perhaps when you
Yeah,
started
yeah,
out.
let's talk about that. We'll talk.
You're calling these people up on the phone and saying, "Hey, listen, do they ever charge you to play?" I know here I'm based in Madrid, Spain. They have like pay to play. You actually have it's almost like setting up a wedding or something. You have to pay for the room. You know.
Right, the room. So, yeah, so there's a couple different ways. One thing that I'm gonna say, the sacrifices that I made, I I think sacrificing going the route that I did as a DIY touring musician, I mean, if you even think that you're gonna have a relationship and that's out. I mean, it's hard to stay in touch. You know, you do your best you can to like stay in touch with friends. Um, but you're constantly moving. I mean, I didn't realize it till later, but I was like, I lost probably a couple of years of sleep just, and the stresses of there was times where I didn't have extra money at all. I just had enough money for food and bills, but that's all good. And as long as I was on the road, it was great, you know. But as time went on, I mean, we can talk about the progression because I did start to see a huge progression. I started making good guarantees. Every time I'd start to play these different cities, people would show up who I had no idea who they were. And I started playing bigger shows. So, let's talk about the touring, like in the pre-tour stuff. So for the planning of the tours, I'd usually work about 3 months in advance, booking tours. Um, sometimes you end up getting shows a month before, a couple weeks before filling up holes, but, like, the key to all of it was pre-planning, and I did a lot of planning. So, I was planning my year ahead, 6 months,
Where did you
3
sleep? Just
months.
you looking for, maybe talk to the venue and say, do you have any friends I can crash on their couch or any local bands I can sleep with?
So
I mean, sleep at their place.
yeah, so there'd be a lot of different scenarios. Some venues would say, "Hey, like we have a place to stay if you'd like.
Okay.
We offer food." Some places do door deals. Some places, do bar percentages. Some places do guarantees. And at the beginning, you see a whole span of this. Sometimes you'll make a couple $100, and sometimes you'll just make $15. But
Because you'll
I
lose it
think
all in accommodation and food probably when you travel. I mean, really, that can get expensive fast. You got to be like, let's say this is a consultancy and you're telling to me like how to do it. Like, first question to ask is like, do you guys give me food? Can I, have a place to spend? Otherwise that'll just kill you.
So, well, a lot of it too, like I don't drink, and so when people would offer like drink tickets, I would ask if they have serve food instead, and a
Oh.
lot of times they do. Um, Also, I'm big in accounting and budgeting and stuff like that, so I would figure out basically how much I would spend per day. I
Hmm.
also got to know like how much it costs in gas to get to certain places. I also got to a point where I can ask for a certain guarantee for a lot of these places because of my track record. So you can build up to these things. Um, and once you figure these things out, I mean, there's even places around the country that offer food for touring bands. I mean, a lot of times people who knew me just from online saw how much work I was doing and just would give me places to stay. I mean, I had so many friends it's like I didn't even ask and they were like, "Hey, like I'm on tour, but my place is empty. When you're in town, do you want to stay there?" And I mean, it's like you start to get real spiritual about it because
Uh-huh.
we're all kind of connected. And I feel like I had so many different people who just came out and just started to support me because they saw that I took the first jump.
Yeah, people really respect people who are fighting for their dreams and working for it, and then you can really feel the humanity of everyone helping you out.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too is like I got a lot of comments like, "Oh my god, you're a woman alone," like, and I just really realized that it's more the fear and that it wasn't really that scary out there, but also I think it's important that I could show like other women, "Hey, I'm doing this, but you can do it too and don't be afraid." But that goes on beyond women. It's just people, I've had a lot of people just, I've talked to and they said, "Man, I thought it was kind of over, or like you've gotten me to like think about trying this." And to me that sounds fucking amazing.
Hmm.
Like, great, that's why I'm here, to hear something like that. That's the biggest payoff, more than money. It's like,
But there has to be some things that people have to watch out for on the road. It's not all. safe and fun, right? There's got to be. Can you tell us about like some things that, let's say, folks that want to do this should avoid, mistakes that maybe you made that you can make us all the wiser for not doing?
I mean, there were certain points where I was like, "Okay, I've been doing this long enough. I don't need to, like, go through this anymore. This is ridiculous." Like, I've definitely had moments like that. But I've also felt so grateful. I feel like through all this, I feel like the meaning of, like, staying somewhere clean and nice and, like, having enough money for food and more has meant so much.
Hmm.
Being able to buy someone, uh like a gift, like for the holiday, or just being able to these cat I mean, sorry to sidetrack us, but like even in quarantine, these like small things that we might take for granted, like going to get a coffee, being able to buy someone a coffee is
Yeah.
like, wow, it's like has meant so much to me. So what I would just say the biggest thing for me is a lot of bands treat tour because they don't tour often as like a vacation. And so I'm like super because I wanted to sustain everything for a really long time. I eat very healthy. Going to grocery stores is great. You save a lot of money. Um, Also, not drinking is really smart. You got to keep your head and mind like really straight and clean.
You got to
And
make sure you get
a
paid the
lot of
right amount of money, and you can't do that if you're wasted.
clarity. I mean, there's just no fucking way I could do the workload.
Yeah.
It's just, it's you can't. It takes too much. I mean, I just think also once you're doing this and you get the confidence and you do it and jump in yourself, I mean, like I would have no problem walking up to people and just asking them if they wanted to buy a CD. And I think, you know, selling yourself as an artist or band, that's a whole nother thing, and I think you have to build the confidence inside to say, "Hey, you know what I'm doing is gonna help and better mankind, humankind. I'm adding to the world, in a positive way. I believe what I'm doing. I've got a good message, and it's worth trying to, offer it to someone or sell it." A lot of people want a manager or someone else representing them, you know?
Yeah. Some bands seem to want almost like what they've seen in TV shows and movies as far as that touring lifestyle. And, I've seen bands that have merch and after the show, they never even open up that merch box. They're just at the
Yeah.
bar. They're just at the bar drinking. Like, who's selling the
That
merch?
Yeah, and that's an important thing. It's a lot trickier when you're alone or if you're with 2 people. I think I started getting a really good system once it was beyond myself, because one person can manage the merch table and while the other person's playing or vice versa. Or if you're with a few people, I mean, God, I feel I'm like, "Man, what a, like, a great thing to have a band, a unit who everyone's on the same page," which is really hard to find, but, like, you guys all have jobs, and I think if everybody all does their jobs, you can get so far. So I think the key for a lot of artists and bands who wanna get into this, having merch is key. Like, most of my shows at the beginning, because I had merch, I was able to make money for a hotel and food where I needed it and extra money for, my bills and, like, essentials and stuff like that. But
So
I
what's the
spent
what's the merch that best worked for you? T-shirts? Is
yeah,
that
t-shirts, CDs, I had tapes, buttons. I have this t-shirt that sells out all the time. Says "Do it yourself, mother."
perfect for the first episode of the DIY Dirt? She has a shirt that says "Do it yourself." I'm gonna have one of those shirts in one of these episodes coming soon. Do you have any
Hell yeah.
left?
Yes, I will get you one. Uh And the funny thing is that whole saying came as a joke. So when I would have these people who were asking me literally through Facebook, I'd get messages every day saying like, how do you tour? Can you book a tour for me? Like, how do you do this? Do you have contacts? Can I have this?" And like, I'm always, in the DIY community, there's a few of us out there who like had, there beyond myself, there was definitely a few other bands who were touring at the extent of playing hundreds of shows a year. But a lot of the really great community is like everybody's super cool. Everybody, helps out each other and stuff like that. But I had some people who were just like, just they don't want to do any work. And I remember making a joke thinking like, do it yourself, motherfucker. And like kind of, but like also it's like literally do it
Yeah.
yourself because it's like empowering, you know?
Yeah.
So that's where that comes.
You have done over 800 shows. How did you really get how did you get the shows? I'm not sure that we heard that yet. I know you said that you work hard and this and that and the other, but is it a
I
phone
book
call? Is it an email? Like what do you do all day
a
long
mix
to
of
do that?
everything. So
Uh-huh.
for those tours, I mean, a lot of the tours I just booked, through the venues, just reaching out and pitching the venues. Some contacts I had from before, other contacts I were new contacts that I made. I used a super big supporter of this website called Indie on the Move, which is a touring database, or excuse me, venue database of venues by city and state in the United States. And a lot of artists will rate, there's genres, but they give you the contact info. I've been a member for so long that I have a free subscription because I've been a member of the site for like 10 years or something. Um, so I would go through that database. I do Google searching, looking, the city that you're looking to route, um, the
And do
venue,
they offer you minimum guarantees, those venues, or how's that work? Because obviously the United States is a bit different, I think, than how Europe works. But are all those venues saying, okay, if you come here, this is the minimum we'll pay you, and then what is there?
So every venue and club is different, which makes it kind of difficult and challenging, and especially at first. So the first tour that I did solo was a lot about just taking what I could get to figure it out. But once I got into it, and actually every tour that I have done since then has been profitable. Um, or maybe a few of them at the beginning were like broken even, but like, uh, I mean, I just got to a point where I just had, I have a track record that says I've played these places, but and played this many shows, so it's a lot easier for me. And then I have these built-in relationships because I've gone back to these places like 5, 6, 7, 8 times, and each time I just kind of took a slower route. The DIY thing is a slower route, but when I've been doing it, I've enjoyed the process of this. I just like playing music. I like being on the road. So at the time, I've liked the process. I think um at first you really have to kind of take, it's just like working for free, like interning. It's like you kind of have to take what you get, but then you can negotiate like, hey, I can draw this many people, I can sell this out. But I mean, I've still run into markets in the past where, I haven't played,
Uh-huh.
before, or like a
Well, what about
couple.
Europe, for example? When you came over here, how'd that work the first time? You booked your own tour of the UK and Europe, right?
So yeah, so I've done more of, I haven't done significant tours over there, but more like one-offs. I've played London, I think about 3 times over the last few years, Berlin, Spain. So that was just from looking up venues, and I had maybe a couple friends uh
Well,
recommend
we played
places.
together in Spain, if you recall.
Yeah, of course. Of course I do. Well, and some of this too, if you play, I want to give this example too for people who are listening. When I started teaming up on tours, I had certain artist friends who I met, or friendships that were developed, who had bigger draws in different markets. So like one of us would book some markets and the other would take on other markets, or you split it up. And that's a nice thing that you can do with your band, or for other band artists or bands who team up. It's like you guys can both work on different markets. So for some of those tours, myself and other people split those up. We're able to split up the work, which is, you're a team.
Was there a big difference between touring in America and touring in Europe?
Um, I would say I feel like I remember playing Berlin for the first time. I got a guarantee, and I think I got fed, and none of the people at the show, like, they didn't, speak American, and I remember a bunch of kids, and they're just stoked and, selling some merch. London was always fun. little trickier. I think I'm still working in, the whole European market and the UK market and expanding. But I think for the initial
Did you
start of
did you
building
drive
there
yourself
has been
around? Were you driving yourself or?
um, I mean, just one-off, so I just did trains and
Oh,
buses.
there you go. Mhm.
Yeah, and so I would say the number of shows that I've done in Europe, and the UK aren't significant enough to say that I have enough knowledge to know the whole growth system of guarantees and that, but most European places do pay you and give you a place to stay. I had a great show in Scotland.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, super cool venue, Bannerman's Pub, awesome spot in Edinburgh.
We'll have to check it out. Now, let's say one of our listeners wants a roadmap to follow, a daily roadmap, which is a bit difficult because before the quarantine, if I had asked you, like, what would a person who wants to do what you do would do every day, you'd probably just say, hit the phones, or hit the email. But now,
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say, like, when I was touring full time, it was a lot of emails, hours of emails and stuff like that. But things have changed. I mean, and even within the last year, I started doing less touring and more significant shows and more like grouped one-offs, like flying to San Francisco and play like a significant show, fly to LA, do a festival, play a show there, play a record store, like more just concentrated and just, having more of a home base. Like I moved to Brooklyn. To be honest with you, and I'm a very positive person, but I don't even know that DIY touring will ever be the same.
yeah.
And that's just that, and, I don't know. I don't have any facts, but that's my feeling.
So, what are you going to do?
I mean, I'm a record producer, I'm an engineer, I'm a mixer, I run a label. I can still record, I can still do live streams, and I think it's, like, really a good time to kind of create some newer things, you know?
Well, speaking about that, yeah, just tell us real quick all the things that you do and offer for people who are listening to you because you obviously have such a wealth of knowledge in pretty much every aspect of DIY musicianship, producing, all that stuff. Like, tell us a bit about what your services are.
Well, I produce bands, I do co-writing sessions, engineering, mixing, mastering. I've been doing a lot of mixing and mastering the last uh, couple weeks and co-writing sessions. I've been doing those, for about a year and a half or so remotely. And then I do with the label. I have a digital distribution. We just got physical. This is a distribution deal that I have for my label, Diamond Heart. It is with Symphonic Distribution. So for the artists and bands who I work with closely, um, they have a place to put out their music with me if they want, if they're in between labels. Um, and then I get hired for consulting. I've done everything from booking to release plans,
I will
to
do
demo
anything and
listening.
everything.
You know what? If I could encourage anything for another band or artist or person who wants to do music, is to get yourself to a place where you can have a lot of skills, especially right now. Like learn everything you can, to be able to do a lot of different things. I mean, partly one of the great things, I feel like why I've been maybe more successful at the DIY touring is that I was able to, take on other projects from the road. I can mix. I had a mobile rig. Uh, I could still run my label and do hourly consulting from the road. I could still co-write from the road, you
I just
know.
got I just got one question. Your book, when's that coming out?
I'm not sure. It's being worked on right now.
Are
So
you serious?
myself,
I was just guessing. I just took a guess that you had a book. You really
myself.
do? You really do? Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's funny. Actually, I had a lot of people ask me if I was going to write a book. Myself and another artist who I did about 10 tours with, her name's Carissa Johnson. She's an artist from the East Coast, and me being from initially from the West Coast, uh, we started this thing called the DIY Artist Workshop, and we spoke at Apple and a bunch of different schools and organizations, did workshops, and we decided to start a blog and basic tips on being DIY artists and, everything from, suggestions on budgeting and planning to how to promote a show, to, picking out food places on the road. I mean, you name it. So we've been working on a book, and ever since the quarantine happened, we've been trying to do weekly DIY artists live streams, to kind of work on like one section at a time where we give like tips. So we did tips on like setting up releases and stuff like that.
So you're going to take all of these blog posts and stuff and make a book out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll be more expansive.
And when's that going to come out?
I'm not sure, but I think probably in the next year. We're working on it basically now as we speak and going through the chapters. And you can view part of the blog on my label site.
I'll put the link around here somewhere for the straight to the blog.
Okay, great. Yeah. Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah. So diamondheartproduction.com. Yeah. And check it out while you still can, because at some point it'll be taken down.
Cool. So to wrap this up, how about a final word, maybe some spiritual, philosophical advice from Vanessa Silberman to all the current DIY or aspiring DIY artists out there?
Okay, so I'll probably leave you with this. I've decided that this is probably something important to say because I feel like whenever I've said it, someone needs to hear it. But when I've been on the road touring and usually sometime in my set, I usually tell people that if you've been thinking about doing something in life, but you've been just kind of waiting for the right moment, or you've been thinking about it, like maybe I'll do that thing that I want to do in a year, or like, yeah, maybe in a month. I'm telling you right now to not wait anymore because life is short depending on what you believe. And don't wait around for anyone to tell you that it's okay to follow your heart. The biggest risk you'll take is not taking a risk on yourself. So go for it. I know we're in quarantine right now, but if you were doing something before this that you weren't really happy with or wasn't in your heart, maybe take this time to think about doing something for now and the future that you can work towards that's more in line with who you are.
There's no excuses. We're in quarantine. Just get it done. Do it your self, says Vanessa Silberman. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thanks so much for having me, Phil. And great to connect. Countries apart, this is really awesome. I'm really grateful for technology right now.
To take us out, we're going to listen to a new song called All the Kids by Vanessa Silberman. Can you tell us a bit about this song?
Yeah, All the Kids lyrically is kind of about, some personal, thoughts on, political or like social kind of views, but also making fun of it. I think if you've ever wanted to know the truth, children and kids are just so honest and pure. They just kind of have nothing holding them back. So I really wanted to kind of capture the truth that kids have. And musically, I was kind of going for something that I wanted like to have a lot of raw punk, and grunge energy, but mix it with some pop and hip hop production. And also my drummer, I want to just give a shout out to my drummer, Ryan Carnes, who, even though I produced and engineered and performed everything, I was lucky to have, this other person do it yourself, but do it yourself with some help. When you're doing everything yourself, it's nice to have get a proper perspective. So, I would send mixes to Ryan. He'd give me, some thoughts on like just different drum parts. And so, yeah, and that's All the Kids.
Here we go. All the Kids.